What's going on, guys? Kidney here,
And I'm Failure.
and we are the Kidney Failure Show. Today, we are going to be ranking every single Playboi Carti song, which includes all 4 of his studio albums, in addition to all of his singles and his many, many features over the years. This isn't going to include leaks, sorry Pissy Pamper fans, as we're only going to be ranking officially recorded and released music. But, without any further delay, why don't we get right into it?
Alright, beginning off with F- tier, we've got number 169, Playboi Carti's worst song of all time, Snow, featuring Playboi Carti and Dante's. This is a song by Kubrick, and the song is just generic, has a terrible chorus, and is the most amateurish song in Carti's entire discography. Not even worth listening to for laughs.
Moving on to F tier, we've got at a number 168, Still Kicking / On Go by Milan Makes Beats and Playboi Carti, as well as Thousand Band Founi. And this song was released just before Die Lit, so at this point in Carti's career, you'd expect something much better than this very bland and poorly auto-tuned garbage. And, Carti obviously has some really solid cloud rap, but him and Thousand Band Founi just sound terrible on this one.
At number 167, we've got Check featuring Playboi Carti. This one's by DP Beats. And Carti has a different song named Check, which we call The Good Check, which is miles better. This song has a very basic beat, and Carti's verses are extremely repetitive in the worst way possible. The last part of the song is literally just Carti mumbling, "I just ran into a check," for about a minute straight. I kid you not.
And at number 166, we've got Red Lean featuring Playboi Carti by Dolan Beats. This is an extremely short song that wastes its limited runtime by not really accomplishing anything. The best I can say about it is that you could trick someone into thinking that this is a bad song off of Die Lit, as Carti's rap style here is similar to what he does on that album.
Let's take a moment to explain what the numbers you're seeing mean. In short, we've given every Carti song a rating from 0 to 10, but don't be too put off if your favorite song is given a 4, because our rating system is very strict. A 5 is about average, solid even, and a 7 is a very good song. Meanwhile, a 10 is an absolute banger, a Carti song that's one of the best of all time. We're averaging out all the ratings each song gets depending on the album, and we're going to keep that rolling average up until the end to see which album has the most consistently good of Carti's.
Yeah, so if a song has a lot of really good songs and a lot of really bad songs, it'll average out. Also, we're going to clump all of the non-album songs into one category, which includes all of his many features, as well as a few of his solo single releases. So that's going to be a huge category, obviously, but we're going to see if the Carti songs that aren't on his studio albums are overall better than any of his albums. But with all that said, let's get right back into the ranking.
At number 165, we've got Fine Shit by Playboi Carti. This is his most recent album, I Am Music, and it's gotta be the worst song off it. The song is pretty bad in general, but there are also heavy rumors that Carti's verse on this song is AI generated, which is a pretty bad look for a man who makes a big fat deal out of how much of an avant-garde perfectionist he is. The only good thing you can say about this song is that it knows not to overstay its welcome, but it's really bad.
At number 164, we've got What by Uno the Activist and Playboi Carti. This track is extremely repetitive, and even though Uno is Carti's cousin, I wish they'd collab less because they put out a whole lot of mid together. The repetition on the song is just plain unenjoyable, and Uno's verse is rather inconsequential.
At number 163, we've got Perry A featuring A$AP Rocky, A$AP Nast, Playboi Carti, and Jaden Smith, and this one's by the A$AP Mob. One of the tracks off the Cozy Tapes Volume 2. What really sinks the song is Jaden Smith's chorus. He's doing some kind of deep voice, and it's just an immensely goofy sounding chorus. The song would probably be even lower than here, but obviously you've got some lyrical titans like A$AP Rocky on here keeping the song ranking from going lower. This is also a good time to mention that music is a team effort, right? You'll notice that on a lot of the songs that Carti features on, he may not contribute as much as the others. But, like a school class project, you all get the same grade.
So despite Carti being just fine on Perrier, certainly not a 1 out of 10 performance by him, the song is still pretty damn bad. You'll also definitely see the flip side of this later on, where Carti is hard carried through certain good songs that he barely even has any lyrics on, but is still officially credited. But with that being said, let's move on to D- tier. At number 162, we've got Whole Thang featuring Uno the Activist by Playboi Carti. This song has a beat that's a bit darker and more aggressive, but it's one of those tracks where it feels like Carti and Uno are just talking over a beat. Super unremarkable song, not much to say here.
At number 161, we've got Had To by Playboi Carti. As the song title suggests, we had to give this one a 2. The worst part about this is it's the last song off Carti's self-titled album. which is a big slap in the face if you're expecting a decent outro to conclude the project, which is to us what makes this one of the worst songs off it, and thus begins Carti's tradition of really phoning in his album outros.
At the number 160th spot, we've got V Lone Thug by Milan Makes Beats, Uno the Activist, and Playboi Carti. The song's got a more iconic name than anything else about it. It's pretty bad, and you can tell Carti's still developing his signature style and definitely hasn't quite found it yet here. At the very least, you've got Carti yelling V Lone Thug over and over, which is a bit of an earworm, but it's overall just not a good song.
At number 159, we've got What Type of Shit You On by YRN Merc and Playboi Carti. This came out the year before Whole Lotta Red, and you can see him really experimenting with his baby voice here, but it definitely wasn't working at this point. We're grateful this wasn't the sort of stuff we ended up with on the album, and YRN Merc doesn't do anything special on this track either.
At number 158, we've got Rather Lie with The Weeknd by Playboi Carti. This song will probably end up being the most popular song off of I Am Music, and it absolutely does not deserve all the streams. The song is immensely soulless, potentially uses AI for Carti's verses again, and is overall just boring. As The Weeknd says on it, I'd rather spare you the details, and we'd rather spare you the details of why this song is so bad. Just give it a skip.
At 157, we've got Walk by Playboi Carti. Very repetitive song, a big forgettable disappointment on the back half of I Am Music. The beat is the same grating trumpets blaring over and over, and Carti's verse is fairly mediocre, not to mention Swap Izzo's annoying outro, which is just one of many examples of him colonizing the hell out of Carti's album. Not sure how he pulled that off, but well, here we are.
At number 156, we've got Unlimited featuring Playboi Carti by Nav. This is off of Nav's recent flop album, On My Way to Rexdale, and Carti's work on this track is okay at best. Nav doesn't really do anything crazy either. The biggest problem is that this is a very forgettable song that is super easy to tune out and will be forgotten quickly. The song isn't really saved by the uncredited Weeknd outro either.
At number 155, we got Get Dripped, featuring Playboi Carti by Lil Yachty. This might be a bit of a controversial take, but this is just a weak song, and both Carti and Yachty have done much better. It beats out some of the bottom of the barrel nonsense below it due to it actually being a professional sounding track, but the beat is just not fun, and neither of the two rap very well on it.
At number 154, we've got Meh by Playboi Carti, and Carti, in his infinite wisdom, named the most meh song on Whole Lotta Red, Meh. Not to be confused with this single, At Meh. I genuinely forget what this song sounds like as soon as it stops playing. So forgettable.
At number 153, we've got Hit a Lick, featuring Playboi Carti by Harry Fraud, another forgettable song, this time produced by the complete no-name Harry Fraud. Why was Carti on this? No one knows, but at least this beat is a smidge more memorable than the other bad songs around here in the ranking. Still pretty forgettable though.
At number 152, we've got Dis One Got It by Playboi Carti, another fairly simplistic and forgettable song. Its beat should go harder, but it just doesn't really land. It gets immensely repetitive towards the end of its runtime as well. A lot of these bottom tier I Am Music songs are pretty interchangeable in how forgettable they are, and speaking of...
At number 151, we've got Munyon. This song is marginally better, mostly due to how bouncy the beat feels and how it feels like Carti and Swamp Izzo are rushing and how they're yelling. Still a pretty bad song though.
And with that concludes the D- tier and gets us up into D tier. At number 150, we've got Pump Fake by Ethereal and Playboi Carti. Ethereal is pretty important to Carti's journey because him and Awful Records definitely helped him get his start, but this has got to be their worst collab together. Ethereal doesn't even rap on this, and while it tricks you into thinking it's catchy at first, Carti saying pump fake, ooh, gets real old after it's been nearly 5 minutes. It's a decent beat, but just fairly basic and lacks a distinctive style.
At number 149, we've got Place. One of the stranger beats on Whole Lotta Red, produced by Pierre Bourne actually, but even with that, it's not a memorable song at all. I would say it's one of the songs on the back end of the album that doesn't succeed in establishing the different, less ragey vibe that Whole Lotta Red went for towards the end of its runtime.
And at number 148, we've got Twin Trim with Lil Uzi Vert by Playboi Carti. A song that Carti actually isn't even on his long-awaited own studio album.
What a sick joke!
It's debatable whether we even should be ranking this song, but we've gone ahead and done so anyways because he's credited. In a vacuum, it would be a half-decent song because Lil Uzi is catchy, but it's just such a middle finger to the fans to have Carti not even on the track. Huge L, Mr. Carter.
At number 147, we've got For the People by Ethereal and Playboi Carti. Ethereal and Carti have good chemistry. This track is just ancient though, so it feels fairly amateurish and repetitive. The song is long and the beat is boring.
And at number 146, we've got I Know You Know, also by Ethereal and Playboi Carti. Another collab between the two that's very interchangeable with the last one. On this one, I think Carti sounds a lot like YBN Namir, which is kinda random, but another mid and repetitive song though in the grand scheme of Carti's discography.
At number 145, we've got Come Here by Ethereal and Playboi Carti, one of the more mediocre collab between the two. To us, it's the most listenable of the three, but they're honestly interchangeable, and they feel very dated now.
At number 144, we've got Speedy Gonzalez by Justin Rose and Playboi Carti. This is a rather uninteresting track. Got some references to the iconic cartoon, isn't completely unlistenable, but I'd never listen to it again by choice.
At number 143, we've got Lookin' by Playboi Carti and Lil Uzi Vert. One of the worst songs off Self-Titled, and the worst of the two collabs between Carti and Uzi on the album. Pretty meh beat, Carti doesn't do much here, the song is slightly saved by Uzi bringing the energy back on this verse.
And at number 142, we've got Dallas featuring Playboi Carti by Joey Fats. Joey Fats is apparently Vince Staples' cousin, but besides that fun fact, there's not much here besides a kinda meh love letter to the city of Dallas. Not very memorable, save for maybe Carti's very short verse that does bring a little bit of heat.
At number 141, we've got Paid in Full by Safe and Playboi Carti. A more vibey song, could be worse, but isn't good. Carti's verse has a solid flow, but the whole song is just too long and repetitive so that a short but sweet Carti verse just can't make up for it. Especially because in my opinion, the mix was extremely weird and was randomly much louder than every other song in Carti's discography.
At number 140, we've got Lame Fellas by Playboi Carti. There are many better songs on Self-Titled than this. Pierre's beat is solid, but Carti doesn't do much with it, and it's just not a very notable song.
At 139, we've got Frat Rules, featuring A$AP Rocky, Playboi Carti, and Big Sean. This is by the A$AP Mob, another Cozy Tapes Volume 2 track, an album with just tons of Carti features on it. Carti's work on this is pretty solid, but the overall song just isn't very remarkable and doesn't have the most enjoyable beat.
At number 138, we have K-Pop by Playboi Carti. Originally one of the assorted singles dropped by Carti on Instagram under the name Ketamine, the song was always arguably the weakest of the 7 pre-I Am Music singles, but it feels even more momentum halting where it's placed 3rd in the album, and I just wish it wasn't there at all.
At number 137, we've got Mr. Miyagi off Donda 2. Technically released on platforms as Donda, it's really just Kanye not having labels wanting to release music with him. Carti's got a hidden feature on here, and it's a pretty bad verse. The song overall though has an okay beat and hook, and Future hops on here to keep the track serviceable at least.
At number 136, we've got Not Playing by Playboi Carti. I will probably be not playing this song much in the near future. See what I did there? Please laugh. Anyways, this is a very forgettable song. One of those really uninteresting ones that I can barely remember what it sounds like.
Number 135, we've got Crank by Playboi Carti, a somewhat interesting I Am Music song, but the beat just isn't that listenable and good. The song is clearly meant to be super aggressive and hype, but I think it ultimately feels kind of subdued, which makes it just come off as a little weird.
At number 134, we've got Jumpin' with Lil Uzi Vert by Playboi Carti, the long-awaited and begged for Lil Uzi collab that has got to be one of the most disappointing songs off of I Am Music because you've been waiting for 5 years for their reunion, and then the song is really short and just not that good. Biggest letdown of all time? We'll let you decide.
Speaking of, if you hate one of our rankings with all your soul, drop us a comment and let us know why.
Yeah, we tried our best to give well-reasoned analyses of why a song deserves to be where it is, but at the end of the day, we may have some scorching hot takes that deserve a little pushback. But we're probably still getting there.
At 133, we've got Overly by Playboi Carti. Some okay stuff on here, but it's just another super forgettable I Am Music song right towards the end of the album. Carti saying "My pocket's obese" with such determination is kinda funny though.
At number 132, we've got Bankroll featuring Lil Uzi Vert and Playboi Carti by DP Beats. Definitely not a great song at all, very repetitive and amateurish. However, you can almost gaslight yourself into liking it more and more by listening to the angelic Cash Carti ad-lib that's ever present. Not a good song though by any means, just mildly saved by the one catchy phrase nestled throughout the track.
At 131, we've got Hang Up the Phone by K Supreme, a hidden Carti feature on K Supreme's album, who apparently is a college friend of Lil Yachty's, but is nonetheless a really obscure artist. Song overall has a similar appeal and vibe to Bankroll, but has a similar low level of quality when you really get into it.
Number 130, we have Kelly K by Playboi Carti. Is this a good song? No, not really. Is the line, "White ho, let's go," something that evokes Shakespeare almost though? Absolutely. Enough said.
At 129, we've got No Sleep by Playboi Carti. A lot less pleasing to the ears and more repetitive feeling than a lot of other stuff off Whole Lotta Red. Just a very forgettable song, grating to listen to as opposed to going hard, like what I imagined the intended effect was.
At number 128, we've got Die for Guy by Playboi Carti, another rage beat where this time Carti is rapping about his brother, but it just feels pretty forgettable and subdued. There are a few decent parts to this track, however, and it's not necessarily a song I would immediately want to skip.
That brings us to C- tier. At 127, we've got Butterfly Coupe by Milan Makes Beats, Young Bands, and Playboi Carti, a song which is very routine cloud rap, which makes sense with Young Bands. The beat's hard if you appreciate cloud rap, however. It feels like Carti's going backwards into the early Cash Carti era, and Young Bands has some crazy lyrics that you definitely shouldn't be saying.
At number 126, we've got Beef by Ethereal and Playboi Carti, probably the most popular song from the Cash Carti era, however I think it's quite overrated. Still the best collab between Ethereal and Playboi Carti on this ranking though.
At 125, we got Booted Up featuring Sean Kingston and Playboi Carti. This one's by DJ Twin. There's some cool harmonization between Sean Kingston and Carti on this, but the energy is a little lazy and the lyrics aren't the best.
At number 124, we've got Number 9 by Playboi Carti. Could you imagine if we arbitrarily put this in the top 10? Jokes aside, it's a super boring song off of self-titled, boring but not unlistenable.
Number 123, we've got Do That Shit by Playboi Carti. The song's biggest crime is that it's just another really forgettable song off self-titled. Not offensive, just meh. Moving on.
At number 122, we've got FYBR, Fiber, or First Year Being Rich, featuring ASAP 12e, ASAP Rocky, ASAP Ant, ASAP Ferg, Key, and Playboi Carti by ASAP Mob. Starts out pretty good, but the longer it goes on, it just gets worse. Definitely doesn't have the same magic as some of the other Cozy Tapes Volume 2 songs that we'll see later.
At 121, we've got Crumbs featuring Playboi Carti by Drum. Drum's the guy who did the hit song Broccoli with Lil Yachty. Not much more to say about this song though. Carti's verse is short, it's a little boring, but the song is perfectly listenable and isn't the worst.
At number 120, we've got Top 5 featuring Playboi Carti by Cap G. Ultimately a mediocre song that just isn't super offensive and is mostly saved by Carti giving a decent verse that could be almost considered die-lit tier.
At 119, we've got King Vamp, an extremely disappointing song, mostly because of the title. It's such a cool name, but the actual track is just Control if it was bad. Still listenable though in the grand scheme of things, just a letdown.
At number 118, we've got Foreign by Playboi Carti, probably the most forgettable and least creative song on Die-Lit, but still not that bad. Definitely doesn't differentiate itself enough to stand toe-to-toe with some of the other tracks on the album that are right next to it.
At number 117, we've got South Atlanta Baby, a mediocre outro that starts out kinda strong, but is just kinda boring and uninspiring as you go through it, which is a shame because the track thematically ties together the album as being a love letter to Atlanta. It's just there's not enough there to really make it great.
At number 116, there's I Love It, featuring Playboi Carti by Camila Cabello. Not a bad verse from Carti at all, and for a Camila Cabello song, this is still pretty good, but at the end of the day, it's a generic pop song, and it contains very little substance.
At 115, we've got 100 Racks by Offset featuring Playboi Carti by Quality Control. It's a solid, listenable song, nothing too special but not offensive in any way. It is somehow still just an incredibly forgettable song, saved only by being decent when you actually bother to listen to it.
At number 114, we've got Every Little Thing featuring Playboi Carti by Joey Fats. I don't like most of this song, but it's mostly saved when Carti comes in and kinda snaps on the beat. Could be more offensive, but it isn't.
At number 113, we've got London Town featuring ASAP Rocky, ASAP Ant, and Playboi Carti by the ASAP Mob. Off the first Cozy Tapes album, this is a hard song to rank because ASAP Rocky is lyrically very talented as always, but the song is not super interesting overall and is kind of just a forgettable rap cipher.
At number 112, we've got Top featuring Pure Born by Playboi Carti. This is the last song on Die-Lit, and while it should feel like an outro, it really doesn't. Disappointing finish to an otherwise great album.
At number 111, we've got featuring Playboi Carti by Chief Keef, a surprisingly mid song given the duo. Relatively boring and forgettable, but not offensive track, with a beat that kind of carries. Most notable thing would be Carti's moaning which makes this definitely a kinda sus track, but still not terrible.
At number 110, we have Feel Like Dying by Playboi Carti, another super mid outro in Carti's career, but at least this one vaguely resembles an outro compared to some of the others.
At number 109, we've got Off the Meter with Playboi Carti and Destroy Lonely by Ken Carson. This track is off Ken Carson's More Chaos album. It's most notable for being the first time Carti hops on a release with his two protégés, which took a very long time to finally happen. Otherwise, the song is alright, it's perfectly listenable, but isn't particularly special on its own merits.
At number 108, we have New Neon by Playboi Carti. It starts poorly, but definitely recovers a little as the song goes on. It's got an okay soundscape, but Carti's not at the top of his rap game here.
At number 107, we've got Switching Lanes, featuring Playboi Carti by Pure Born. This is an alright song that's fairly forgettable, but still perfectly listenable. It mostly just goes on a little too long and isn't one of Pierre's better beats.
At the number 106 spot, we've got Philly with Travis Scott by Playboi Carti. This is one of the more painfully average songs on IM Music. This song definitely feels like the embodiment of Carti's label seeing the success Travis had with Fiend, and then deciding they should feature him 5 times throughout the whole album. Carti does some decent stuff in his verse here though.
At number 105, we've got Trim with Future by Playboi Carti. Future has a really good verse on this, but the beat isn't super notable. The song isn't memorable at all, and Carti doesn't do much with his verse. It doesn't help that Swamp Izzo is once again spamming his name all over the song.
At the number 104th spot, we've got Punk Monk by Playboi Carti. The name of this song goes much harder than the actual song itself, but it did create some iconic TikTok sounds. Other than that though, it's just a pretty disappointing song in the grand scheme of Whole Lotta Red, but it could be worse.
At number 103, we've got Yo Pierre, featuring Playboi Carti by Pierre Bourne. Pierre put a little something extra into this beat. It's high energy, happy, starts off really strong, but then it gets a little more generic and definitely isn't one of his better songs by the time you're done with it.
At number 102, we have Carnival by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign. Carti's hidden feature verse on this Vultures 1 song is actually pretty good, but the song in its entirety is a little questionable and gets old fast.
At number 101, we've got Vino by Playboi Carti. This song definitely halts the energy that the start of Whole Lotta Red had going and feels out of place where it is in the album. However, on its own, it's still a decent song.
At the number 100th spot, we have All Red by Playboi Carti. It's a catchy alright song, but ultimately it probably wouldn't have fit well with IM Music, so I'm glad it didn't end up on the final album.
At number 99, we've got I Love You, I Hate You by Playboi Carti. The track's got some solid lyrics, a decent beat, but is honestly a criminally overrated song. It's the second most streamed track off Whole Lotta Red, but it doesn't do anything special compared to any of the other songs off the back end of the album. But it does again give us very iconic TikTok sounds.
At number 98, we have Other Shit by Playboi Carti. The production is good on this track, and Carti keeps up with it, but the song isn't the most notable ever, to be honest.
This brings us to C tier. At number 97, we've got Junia, Part 1 and 2 by Kanye West. This is the worst Carti verse off the 2 Donda Carti features, with Part 2 basically being the same thing, but with Ty Dolla $ign, so we decided to just lump the 2 together. It's an okay song overall though, a little repetitive, but pretty listenable.
At number 96, we have Blixum featuring Playboi Carti by Lotto. This was the last featured single Carti was on before IM Music dropped. You get a solid verse from Carti here, and the rest of the song isn't bad either, just not something you're excited to hear again. Very 5 out of 10 kind of song.
At number 95, we got Blown Minds, Skateboard, featuring A$AP Rocky, A$AP Nast, A$AP Ant, Chief Keef, and Playboi Carti by A$AP Mob. Another one of the Cozy Tapes Volume 2 songs that has so many features that it just feels like a cypher. Pretty simple beat, decent lyrical stuff on the track, and you've got the Chief Keef and Carti verses kind of blending together. Solid song.
At number 94, we've got Minute by Nav, Metro Boomin, Playboi Carti, and Offset. Your enjoyment with this song heavily depends with how much you can stand Nav, but regardless, Carti definitely washes Offset and Nav on the song. You got a great verse here by him.
At number 93, we've got Broke Boy by Playboi Carti. Maybe a bit of a hot take putting Broke Boy this low, as it's a song that's almost as fundamental to Carti's career as Magnolia is, but not quite. It's an iconic song from the Crash Carti era, but in a vacuum, it's just an average song that's aged alright.
At number 92, we've got Get the Bag, featuring A$AP Rocky, A$AP Ferg, A$AP Ant, A$AP Nast, A$AP Ty, Playboi Carti, and Smokey Margiela by A$AP Mob. This song's got a gritty beat with a relatively short Carti verse, but all the verses on here, the many verses on here, had good chemistry and flow into each other. The song just goes on for a little long, and it gets a little boring eventually.
At number 91, we've got Popular with Playboi Carti and Madonna by The Weeknd. After a solid hiatus, we finally got a Carti feature, but it was one that was him clearly third-wheeling The Weeknd and Madonna. It was also rumored to be a 2-year-old verse just retrofitted to the song. Overall, Carti's verse is catchy if you like Carti, but super out of place if you're just a Weeknd fan trying to enjoy the song.
At number 90, we've got Home, KOD by Playboi Carti. One of the worst songs on Dial It technically, but as a whole, it's not a bad song. A lot of repetitiveness on this track, but it actually kind of works, and the song doesn't drag on too long, fortunately too, so it comes out to be decent.
At number 89, we've got YSL featuring Playboi Carti. This one's by Gunna. Solid performances from Carti and Gunna here, but nothing stand out. However, very catchy and a bit of an earworm, and an inoffensive, listenable song.
At number 88, we've got Saucin', the remix of it, by Lucky and Playboi Carti. This song kind of goes hard, but is nonetheless dated. Carti and Lucky have good chemistry, and it sounds like Lucky is truly enjoying himself on this track, but at the end of the day, the whole thing is nothing really to write home about.
Number 87, we've got Telephone Calls featuring A$AP Rocky, Tyler the Creator, Playboi Carti, and Young Leash by ASAP Mob. Pretty consistent song with a good beat. Rocky is just flowing non-stop, and Tyler fits on the song really well. Carti's verse is basically non-existent, but the song is still solid nonetheless.
Number 86, we have Old Money by Playboi Carti. A fun song that certainly doesn't detract from Dial It, but isn't anything groundbreaking for Carti either. The whole thing feels on the sillier side, with Carti chanting, "Old money, new ho," but it's still a good vibe.
Number 85, we've got Pain 1993 with Playboi Carti by Drake. Originally, people hated Carti's baby voice on here, but I think it's become pretty funny and aged well, especially with some of the legendary Family Guy memes that have very randomly come out of it. Drake could be worse on here, but he actually does okay.
Number 84, we've got Homicide featuring Playboi Carti by Lil 1 DTE. Lil 1 DTE is definitely trying to rap his ass off on this, and Carti's got a solid verse here in his post-Whole Lotta Red era, but the song overall is just fairly average.
At number 83, we've got Timeless featuring Playboi Carti by The Weeknd. This is the big single off The Weeknd's album that came out before I Am Music. It's an okay song. I'd honestly say the TikTok edit version with the epic orchestral guitars is almost better though. There also is the Doechii remix that is pretty universally thought to have a terrible verse from her. Alright song overall in a vacuum though.
At number 82, we have Cocaine Nose by Playboi Carti, another average song that's got a similar vibe and energy to the album's intro Pop Out, just not as well executed. It's a rage song that doesn't go as hard as it could and should.
At number 81, we got Fuck Someone by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign. Another hidden feature from Vultures 1, deep voice Carti fits super well with the song. However, there are some questionable parts to an otherwise hype song like the Chipmunk voice bridge and very horny lyrics.
At number 80, we've got New Choppa by Playboi Carti and A$AP Rocky. Like many collabs he's on, Rocky lyrically carries. The beat is on the stranger side with this one, but overall it's enjoyable. Gotta love the COD Zombies door-by sound effect in there too.
Number 79, we've got Field Trip by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign. Another hidden Carti feature here, this time off Vultures 2. Interesting vibey beat. I'm not gonna lie, Kodak Black's got a very bizarre verse on here, and Carti's verse is short and just okay. Overall song isn't terrible though, especially considering the album it's on.
At number 78, got Half and Half by Playboi Carti. One of the more average songs on Self-Titled. Lyrically, it's not great, but it's got a cool eerie beat that I enjoy quite a bit.
Number 77, we've got We Need All the Vibes with Young Thug and Ty Dolla $ign. This is an immensely hated song overall, but I think it doesn't deserve all the flack it gets. On its own, it's a solid Young Thug and Ty Dolla $ign song. However, Carti definitely feels like a guest on the song that's off his own studio album, which is a problem for sure. The placement on the album is weird too and contributes to I Am Music feeling more like a disjointed mixtape, but the song on its own honestly is still pretty decent.
At number 76, we've got Beam featuring Playboi Carti by 88 Rising and Rich Brian. Rich Brian and Joji's label brings on Carti for a one-time feature, and Carti definitely puts his all into his part here. Good song, but Rich Brian does bring the whole thing down a little when you get to his verse in the second half.
Number 75, we've got Of Course We Ghetto Flowers featuring Playboi Carti and Offset by Lil Uzi Vert. Off of Lil Uzi's The Perfect Love tape, the song represents a major step up in production quality for Carti, with this having released so early in his career. However, Carti's verse is not fantastic on this, but Lil Uzi and Offset give a good performance.
At number 74, we've got Middle of the Summer featuring Red Cold Hearted by Playboi Carti. In the context of Dial It, this song is fairly average and doesn't have much of note on it. Fun fact though, Red Cold Hearted is apparently a childhood friend of Carti's, which explains why a complete no-name with no real other music is on Carti's second album.
Number 73, we've got Same Young Fella featuring Playboi Carti by Gunna. Off his album Drip or Drown 2, Gunna hops on a fun beat here that kinda gives me underwater vibes. Carti's auto-tune style here is a little different than we've really heard from him ever, showing his experimentation between Dial It and Whole Lotta Red. Solid song overall.
At number 72, we've got Opium Baby by Playboi Carti. Containing the most Swamp Izzo spam we get on the entire album, the song somehow isn't one of the most offensive tracks on I Am Music, sheerly by how experimental it is. Lots of drawing sound effects and rapid voice switches for Carti. Still, if you had to take a shot every time you heard Swamp Izzo on I Am Music, even the most distinguished alcoholic would have dropped dead by the end of it.
Number 71, we've got Mojo Jojo by Playboi Carti. This song should say with Kendrick Lamar, but it doesn't, and it's very ironic given that Kendrick's on this track substantially more than, say, Carti is on Twin Trim with Lil Uzi. Regardless, the chemistry between Kendrick and Carti carries what would otherwise be a mediocre song.
At number 70, we've got Every Sense by Uno the Activist, Playboi Carti, and Thousand Band Founty. The best collaboration between Uno and Carti, as you've actually got a song that's got a little bit of an interesting and almost emotional hook to it. Carti singing, "Ever since you left my side, I keep a 9 on my side, yeah, yeah, yeah," really carries the song.
Number 69, we've got Check featuring Playboi Carti. This is by Hoodrich Pablo Juan. The song's got a really different beat than what Carti normally hops on, and it's a great beat that really elevates the song. Carti's got a good verse on here too, along with him having some solid chemistry with Pablo. Only bad thing I can say about the song is it's got some questionable lyrics.
At number 68, we've got Backdoor featuring Kendrick Lamar and Jhené Aiko by Playboi Carti. You really can't tell that Carti is saying backdoor on this song. It sounds like he's yelling, big dog, or some funny shit like that. But other than that, it's an above average song which to me has production very reminiscent of Feel Like Dying off A Whole Lotta Red.
At number 67, we've got Hood by Air, or HBA, by Playboi Carti. This was one of the loose singles which dropped at the start of the lengthy I Am Music rollout. Carti's rapping is good on it, and the song's got a great music video to go with it. The whole Opium roster is kinda just vibing out together in the dark.
At number 66, we've got New Tank by Playboi Carti. This song's got some iconic lines on it like, "They thought I was gay!" And it's one of the more memorable songs off A Whole Lotta Red in general, and is definitely a high energy song. Just not one of the best off the whole album.
At number 65, we've got Flex Up, featuring Future and Playboi Carti by Lil Yachty, off Lil Boat 3.5. It's not one of the better songs on that album in my opinion, but it's still a pretty good hype song, solid verses from everyone involved, and a decent beat. It just goes on for a smidge too long, despite having a short runtime.
Number 64, we've got Ain't Doing That by Playboi Carti and Southside, a classic Carti song with a great music video. Southside's production and rapping is pretty good, but when Carti comes in for his verse, the song becomes pure heat. Song can get old fast though, listening to it sparingly I think is key.
Number 63, we've got Right Now, featuring Pure Born by Playboi Carti. Pure's verse on this is solid, but overall, it's just a good middle-of-the-road Carti song. Relatively forgettable on Dial It, while still being a pretty listenable song.
Number 62, we've got R.I.P. Fredo, featuring Young Nudie, also known as Notice Me, by Playboi Carti himself. Generally, I think Young Nudie has better stuff than this track, and it's a little disappointing for this reason, but the Pure beat goes so hard on this and makes it very good. Just unfortunately, it feels like a slightly worse version of R.I.P., which, spoiler alert, we still haven't gotten to yet because it's just better.
Number 61, we've got On That Time by Playboi Carti. This song is very easy to forget about within the grand scheme of Whole Lotta Red, but when you give a listen to it, you're reminded how aggressive the beat is and how Carti is rapping pretty well on it. All I can say is, ride around town with the Draco, D-R-A-C-O, D-R-A-C-O.
At number 60, we've got Spike Lee by Maxo Cream, Playboi Carti, and Rich the Kid. Carti's chorus is very catchy and sounds on par with his work on Self-Titled. The song is pretty cohesive and fun overall, and yeah, shout out Spike Lee.
Number 59, we've got Summer Bummer, featuring A$AP Rocky and Playboi Carti by Lana Del Rey. Super bizarre combo on this song that makes a lot more sense when you realize it's really just a Lana Rocky song, that Carti's only here to pepper in a couple ad-libs. But he's officially credited, so here we are. It's a good song though.
Number 58, we've got Madman featuring Playboi Carti by A$AP Ferg. The energy's high here, the beat goes hard. This is a good instance of Carti being very complimentary to the song and the artist who he features with. Carti comparing himself to Batman as a line on this is also very hype.
Number 57, we got Buckshots by A$AP Rocky. A hidden and short Carti feature that is another high energy, aggressive song overall with some interesting variations in production throughout. With another solid verse by Smokey Margiela, very hype song for sure.
Number 56, we've got Off the Grid by Kanye West, a good song off of Donda. Carti's verse especially is fun and memorable, but quite short in the scheme of the song, and only sounds pretty good provided you're a Carti fan. Fivio Foreign ultimately washes everyone on this song and somehow makes his extremely long verse sound extremely good.
Number 55, we've got At Meh by Playboi Carti. One of the rare solo singles by Carti. This song has got a good beat and overall is really interesting. However, it's probably for the best that the backlash on this song made Carti go in a different direction for the entirety of Whole Lotta Red, but I still like it.
Number 54, we've got Jump Out the House by Playboi Carti, a short little banger that fits well into Whole Lotta Red that is effectively a quick interlude to the more meaty parts of the album. It's a song that continues to showcase the experimentation in the project, but it is too short and simple to merit any higher of a score really.
At number 53, we've got Poke It Out with Nicki Minaj by Playboi Carti. The beat is straight gas and so bouncy. Plus, Carti has some crazy rhythmic flow on this. Nicki brings down the song a little, but her verse is generally overhated. She starts kinda bad, but recovers well throughout her part in the song.
At number 52, we've got Different Day by Playboi Carti. This is the first song off of the Sorry for the Wait deluxe of I Am Music, and another one of the loose singles dropped the year prior. The song is a distinctly nighttime vibe, the sort of jam you'd vibe to driving your car after dark. In general, it's a solid song from Carti's new era.
At number 51, we've got I See You Baby Boy by Playboi Carti. This has a more angelic beat for a bit of a change of pace on I Am Music, and is a solid, interesting track. Carti is indeed at his peak when it comes to the use of the ad-lib, and this song kind of explains why he's actually been saying this whole time. which is presumably See You.
At number 50, you've got Type Shit by Future, Metro Boomin, Travis Scott, and Playboi Carti. It's the song with the gimmick of ending every line with type shit that works pretty well across all three rappers' verses. The good beat made by Metro Boomin meshes well with everyone's styles of rapping.
At number 49, we've got Baguettes in the Face, featuring Nav, Playboi Carti, and A Boogie with the Hoodie by Mustard. Mustard does a great job producing here, and Carti's verse busts in with such a high energy. Nav's energy is solid here too, and A Boogie with the Hoodie's verse is probably the lowlight of this song.
Number 48, we've got Slayer by Playboi Carti. Probably one of the more slept on songs from Whole Lotta Red, at least slept on by me for a while. It's really got a fun beat and nice vibes, and is one of the better songs from the album for sure.
Number 47, we've got Good Credit with Kendrick Lamar by Playboi Carti. This is the best of Kendrick's contributions to I Am Music, and the two of them are rapping so hard together on this track. Kendrick saying, "Carti, my evil twin," is pretty crazy. Overall though, I think Kendrick and Carti's collaborations on this album were a little disappointing compared to what you might be hoping for.
At number 46, we've got Go to the Moon featuring Kanye West by Playboi Carti. It's a good song with a really interesting experimental beat and just an infectious Kanye verse. I just wish Carti's short verse didn't feel like an afterthought here, with it being the second song of his album.
At number 45, we've got Almeida by Solange, a hidden Carti feature that is a rare example where you put Carti in a song and in a genre he probably wouldn't normally fit in, but it somehow works. A pretty beautiful song, but nothing legendary nonetheless.
At number 44, we've got Sky by Playboi Carti. The song's probably most famous at this point for the "Wake up, it's the first of the month" line. I personally didn't really take much notice of Sky when I was first listening to the album, but it definitely grew on me more after it blew up and got a whole music video and everything. It's an upbeat, enjoyable, catchy song with some great lyrics, but not a masterpiece and definitely a little overrated.
At number 43, we've got Unlock It, featuring Playboi Carti by Abra and Boys Noise. Carti's pretty good on this, and the whole song is just kind of refreshing and has good momentum. It's again Carti jumping on a song that isn't quite necessarily within his genre, but it fortunately works really well.
At number 42, we've got Metamorphosis featuring Kid Cudi by Playboi Carti. This is the longest song on Whole Lotta Red, but it somehow doesn't drag on too long, as Carti creates an intriguing soundscape for us to venture into. Kid Cudi humming is a really interesting part of the beat for me, but I think his verse feels just the tiniest bit forced and out of place compared to the rest of the song.
This brings us to B tier. At number 41, we've got Back Rooms with Travis Scott by Playboi Carti. One of the best formerly unreleased I Am Music singles. The song's got a killer darker beat with a solid Travis feature. It's just a very hype song that's got Carti rapping pretty hard. "Think I need me an ice spice, yeah I need me a munch" is one of Carti's wilder lines for sure.
Number 40, Woke Up Like This by Playboi Carti and Lil Uzi Vert. This is a classic song that really embodies the chemistry that Carti and Uzi had. The song was very influential in Carti's rise, and deservedly so.
Number 39, we've got Control by Playboi Carti. DJ Academics does unfortunately give us an annoying intro that gatekeeps us from the rest of the song, but besides that intro, Carti gives us one of the rare, well-executed emotional songs that's a standout track on Whole Lotta Red.
At number 38, we've got Let It Go by Playboi Carti, a very underrated song, fits really well with the rest of the self-titled album and is just such a vibe that Carti slides on. The chorus is one of his best on the album, although I will admit that the song is not complex enough to go on for as long as it really does.
At number 37, we've got Walk on Water, featuring ASAP 12V, ASAP Ant, ASAP Nast, ASAP Ferg, and Playboi Carti by the ASAP Mob. Carti's got multiple verses on this, and the song has a good chorus with a good beat that everyone featured does a good job with. This is definitely one of the best ASAP Mob songs, and is just generally very listenable.
At number 36, we've got Wake Up Filthy with Travis Scott by Playboi Carti. One of the better Carti-Travis features. Here we've got a well-executed, hype-aggressive type beat that starts really strong actually, and the only bad thing I can say about the song is that the song does drag on a little by the end, and the beat can't carry its way through the whole track, unfortunately.
At number 35, we've got Mattress Remix, featuring ASAP Rocky, Playboi Carti, Rich the Kid, and Famous Dex by ASAP Ferg. Mattress starts with you feeling like the song is a silly gimmick, but then everyone featured runs with it with their own creative ways. Carti himself doesn't quite stick the landing on his part, but overall it's a fun song that the Mattress has definitely been through a lot.
At number 34, we've got 2024 by Playboi Carti. The song that kicked off the extremely lengthy and repeatedly delayed I Am Music rollout. This track promised music in 2024, and this turned out to be a massive lie. However, when the song dropped, it was so exciting and full of hope for the new year and just had the best vibes. I think the song is still aged pretty well, and it's fun to see the combo of a more original Carti voice mixed with a deep voice verse.
At number 33, we've got Fiend, featuring Playboi Carti by Travis Scott. Off of Utopia, this song has gotten wildly overplayed, but when it came out, it was a game-changing song. This was the surprise debut of deep voice Carti, and his verse definitely set the tone for the eventual I Am Music rollout. While Carti's verse is kinda legendary and so important, the song overall is just decent.
At number 32, we've got Radar by Playboi Carti. It's got a fire beat that briefly reignites the energy of I Am Music, and Carti's mumbling Metro at the start of the Metro Boomin beat is pretty hype. The song suffers a similar problem to Wake Up Filthy though, in that the beat goes hard, but it's pretty simple, but Radar manages to quit while it's ahead and remains short enough that it doesn't overstay its welcome.
At number 31, we've got Crush with Travis Scott by Playboi Carti. This is definitely an overhated song that I think actually transitions quite nicely after the end of I Am Music's intro. Some people say it's just constantly building and the beat never drops, but I don't really hear what they're talking about. Heavenly with rising momentum is how I describe it.
At number 30, we've got Toxic with Skepta by Playboi Carti. I've never heard Carti's voice and flow sound more like Future, which could be a plus or a minus depending on how you feel. Obviously, given our rating though, you can guess that I see it as more of a plus. Overall though, the song's just so hype and aggressive, plus Skepta's got a really good verse.
Number 29, we've got Mileage featuring Chief Keef by Playboi Carti. This definitely is one of Carti's wildest choruses, but regardless, Chief Keef fits really well onto this song, and he sounds so good on his verse. Carti's great here too.
At number 28, we've got Pop Out by Playboi Carti. This is Carti's weakest intro to an album, but even with that, it's a great song, which probably speaks more to how legendary his intros are. Pop Out sets a fantastic, high-energy rage tone, but ultimately, the project is too all over the map on I Am Music for Pop Out to really be characteristic of the album.
At number 27, we've got Olympian by Playboi Carti, a hidden fan fave that is a little overhyped by its supporters but still has a really unique beat and great performance from Carti. Carti does indeed capture a sort of ancient godlike aura, or perhaps a feeling of being a champion in the clouds, even though Carti is technically referring to being an Olympic athlete on this song.
At number 26, we've got Wrath featuring A$AP Rocky, Playboi Carti, Quavo, Lil Uzi Vert, and Frank Ocean by A$AP Mob. Perhaps the most stacked roster of any song in this ranking. It's a shame that Carti's collaboration with what could be only described as the Avengers themselves is really just him dropping some ad-libs behind A$AP Rocky's verse. It's especially crazy given that Frank Ocean, the notorious king of never dropping music, has 2 verses on this song, while Carti can't even get one. Ironies aside though, great song.
That brings us to A tier, the top 25 Carti songs of all time. At number 25, we've got Ya Mean by Playboi Carti. A pretty iconic, funny song. Maybe not the best song of all time, but still very listenable. I think it's got one of the more catchy and memorable choruses Carti's written. The Ya Mean, Yao Ming double entendre will forever be fascinating and important part of the kidney failure lore.
At number 24, we've got Charge Them Hoes a Fee with Future and Travis Scott by Playboi Carti. Your enjoyment of the song will be heavily dependent on how much you enjoy the progression of Future's repeated hook, Charge Them Hoes a Fee, but I think the song goes extremely hard and has the best Travis Scott verse on I Am Music too. I do think it loses a few points for Carti once again feeling like a guest on his own song though.
At number 23, we've got Mr. Rage featuring Playboi Carti by Trippie Redd. This has got a legendary beat, a solid performance from Trippie, and a terrific Carti verse. Lines like, "She got me leaking," and "I'm on the deep end" go hard to this day. I just wish we got more of this kind of stuff post Whole Lotta Red from Carti, like a deluxe album.
At number 22, we've got Fuck On My DJ or FOM DJ by Playboi Carti. This has got a super unique sound from Carti that is inexplicably really pleasing to the ears. The song definitely sounds like it's from a different project that we never got, but it's awesome that it got thrown on as sort of a never before seen bonus track for the deluxe. Easily hands down the best outro, if you consider the last song on the deluxe album to count as an outro.
At number 21, we've got Lean For Real featuring Skepta by Playboi Carti, one of the better songs off Dial-It. It's got a pretty hard beat and a great feature from Skepta. There's also a fun chorus with Carti with him saying shit like Nickelodeon, where I got that slime. Great song overall.
Number 20, we've got Stop Breathing by Playboi Carti. Not much to say except that this song goes hard and showcases some of the peak of what Carti was trying to accomplish with Whole Lotta Red. It was definitely a bit of a meme when it came out, but I feel like the song is pretty strongly cemented within the Carti canon now.
Number 19, we've got Love Hurts featuring Travis Scott by Playboi Carti. This is one of the rare Carti love songs with a slower beat that still feels very listenable and quotable, even with this being a different pace for Carti. Travis Scott neither adds nor subtracts to this, but this is one of those tracks that starts to show Dial-It getting really good.
Number 18, we've got Fell in Love featuring Bryson Tiller by Playboi Carti. The other main love song on Dial-It, it slightly edges out Love Hurts because the beat comes out swinging. Carti's repetition meshes very well with Bryson Tiller's smooth verse, and it's a great track overall.
Number 17, we've got Evil Jordan by Playboi Carti. This will likely be one of the most popular songs off I Am Music, and it's definitely gaining a bad reputation among Carti purists because of the intro's prevalence in edits on social media, but nonetheless, Carti's undoubtedly rapping his ass off on this. The song goes unbelievably hard, and if this was the only song with Swamp Izzo producer tag being spammed, I think it never would have gotten grading at all, because here it works.
Number 16, we have Over by Playboi Carti. Perhaps a bit of a rogue pick. We put Over much higher than its more popular sister song, Sky. It can be easy to forget this song. It gives a much needed, sadder, reflective vibe to round out the album that also sonically rolls well immediately after Sky.
That brings us to S tier, the top 15 Playboi Carti songs. At number 15, we've got Earthquake by Tyler the Creator. A hidden Carti feature, Earthquake is a gorgeous masterpiece of a song. Carti's contribution should feel out of place, but it somehow doesn't, and the song is truly wonderful overall. It absolutely deserves to be as popular as it is.
At the number 14 spot, we've got No Time featuring Gunna by Playboi Carti. This is a very underrated song that has a great feature from Gunna, awesome beat, and Carti just sounds pleasing to the ears. Couple that with the hilarious way you can potentially mishear the chorus, and you've got one of the most fun Carti songs that exists.
At number 13, we've got Location by Playboi Carti. This is the banger album intro to Self-Titled. The production is ethereal and has great variations throughout. Location definitely gets you excited to listen to the rest of the album, and it really sets the tone to a very different world you're going to. Carti truly doesn't miss on his intros.
At the number 12 spot, we've got Like Wheezy by Playboi Carti. The energy on this beat is phenomenal, and Carti is just going crazy on it with the new interesting flow. The whole track is a really high effort song from Carti, and I think the sample that sounds like it's from SpongeBob is just the cherry on top.
At number 11, we've got Teen X featuring Future by Playboi Carti. One of the few songs with the feature on Whole Lotta Red, Teen X is a criminally underrated song made of pure hype. Carti goes hard, Future goes hard, the beat goes hard, and this is one of the best uses of Carti's baby voice ever. What else can I say but we on X, we on codeine, we on X, we on the codeine.
At number 10, we've got R.I.P. by Playboi Carti. Breaking into the top 10 now, this track is definitely the embodiment of Die Lit, while also being extremely unique, and arguably one of the most iconic Carti songs of all time, and for good reason. It's got an awesome rage beat that's way before its time, as well as unmatched lyrics such as, "Bought a crib for my mama off this mama shit."
At number 9, we've got Chopper Won't Miss featuring Young Thug by Playboi Carti. Young Thug's feature on this is amazing. The song's catchy, it's one of Pureborn's better beats, and the momentum just keeps you going throughout the song, non-stop. One of my personal favorites on Die Lit.
At number 8, we've got Magnolia by Playboi Carti. This is almost certainly the song that contributed the most to Carti being as big as he is today. Simply put, it's his iconic hit single that is extremely deserving of its popularity and has aged quite well. Pureborn's production is amazing, and Magnolia marks the beginnings of their dynamic duo.
Number 7, we've got Flatbed Freestyle by Playboi Carti. Peak Die Lit Carti over a banger beat. We get a rare official freestyle from Carti, and the whole thing works perfectly. This song's a fan favorite, it's a personal favorite, and I don't have anything bad to say about this song.
At number 6, we've got Pull Up by Playboi Carti. This is my personal favorite on Die Lit. Some might say the track is a little repetitive and uninspired, but I genuinely see it as an experimental masterpiece that goes immensely hard. It's got one of the best beats of all time, to be honest, and Carti's ad-libbing is at its absolute peak here.
That brings us to S+ tier, the top 5 Playboi Carti songs of all time. At number 5, we've got Flex by Playboi Carti and Levin Kali. It's a heavenly song that somehow fits with the rest of Self-Titled while also having a rare Carti beat switch, and some of the most reflective sound he's ever made. Levin Kali's bridge cannot be described as anything other than magical, and Carti's final verse rounds out the song perfectly. We've never gotten anything like this from Carti again, making it the best song off his first album.
At number 4, we've got Shoota featuring Lil Uzi Vert by Playboi Carti. This is Uzi and Carti's best team up. I love how long it takes for the beat to build while Uzi is going, then drop as soon as Carti's verse starts. There is amazing chemistry between the two, and the song has just immaculate vibes overall.
At number 3, we've got Vamp Anthem by Playboi Carti. The most fun and creative beat on Whole Lotta Red, hands down. Vamp Anthem adds a lot of personality and style to the album while not feeling too gimmicky. The song doesn't overstay its welcome and keeps itself short and sweet. It's just such a fire, unique song that shouldn't work, but 100% does.
And at the number 2 spot, we've got Rockstar Made by Playboi Carti, an absolutely goated intro. Rockstar Made sets the stage and tone for Whole Lotta Red, and it's just a song like no other. If Rockstar Made doesn't get you hyped to listen to Whole Lotta Red, then the album's just not for you. Never too much, never too much. I love this song, and it's gotta be the track that cemented me as a permanent Carti fan.
That brings us to the number 1 Carti song of all time, which we've decided is Long Time Intro by Playboi Carti. The best song on Die Lit, the best intro to any of his albums, and the best Carti song of all time. Long Time is such a unique song, unlike any of his others, while still being unapologetically just Carti. It sets the tone for the rest of Die Lit, and you could play this song at your graduation, wedding, baby shower, whatever. It's an incredible song.
And that's it for the ranking. Let's now quickly discuss how the final averages for the album shook out.
In last place, we have the combined total of all the non-album and singles with the score of 4.3 out of 10. A majority of Carti's absolute worst songs are features, and none of his absolute best songs are really in that category either. That being said, this also was the largest category with 78 songs, which means any real standouts were diluted by the mediocre middle.
Moving on to second to last place, we have I Am Music with an average score of 5.1 out of 10. The album has a lot of very above average songs, but also many very below average songs, which makes it be just sort of a decent album overall. As a cohesive project, it's not great. I certainly don't love listening to all the songs in the order you would like to listen to them for, an album, but if you pick and choose favorites off of it and just listen to them, then you can still have a good time.
Next, we have Playboi Carti's self-titled album. However, it is tied with Whole Lotta Red. I think this is a good representation of the reality of the albums, which is that both are decently strong projects that you will favor based on personal tastes. If I had to give it to one over the other, I'd probably say Whole Lotta Red, just because it's a more groundbreaking album and arguably more cohesive and unique. However, Self-Titled is still a foundational project in Carti's career, and has just as many highs. Both albums do suffer from some seriously mediocre tracks that do indeed bring them down.
Which means that in first place, instead, we have Die Lit, Playboi Carti's magnum opus. In the past, I hadn't really clicked with Die Lit as much as my co-host Failure did. However, over the course of this ranking process, I have started to truly appreciate the strengths of this album. It's got no real bad songs, and the highs of this project are really, really high. Pureborn's consistent production meshes really well with Carti's unique style, and I think this album continues to age like a fine wine.
And that's all for the rankings of every Playboi Carti song. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing for more content like this. And now that you've made it to the end of the video, we'd like to know what your personal top 5 Carti songs are and what your favorite album is. So leave a comment down below with your thoughts.
Once again though, thank you so much for watching. I'm Kidney.
And I'm Failure.
And this was the Kidney Failure Show.